Welcome to the Resource Nexus podcast. As always, you can check out the full article along with stats and opinions at theresourcenexus.com. When IU Indianapolis opened its season with a 118-102 loss to Ohio State, it wasn't just a box score anomaly, it was a signal. Under new head coach Ben Howlett, the Jaguars are embracing a philosophy that's nearly extinct in Division I basketball: relentless tempo, unyielding pace, and one singular goal: overwhelming opponents with offensive volume. The question that comes out of that chaotic, high-scoring debut is simple. Could IU Indy become the first team in 19 years to average 100 points per game, only the second this century, or in more than 30 years, depending on how you frame it? For the record, before that Ohio State game, I would have said no. And that's coming from someone who already believed in this team. I had them pegged as a sleeper, but more in that 95 points per game range. After watching how aggressive they were and how much they leaned into that pace, 100 suddenly feels realistic. Offense is king, from NBA to NCAA. Offense currently dominates the world of basketball. It's obvious in the NBA, where efficiency is exploding. Less known is that college basketball is also experiencing its most efficient season since tracking began in 1997. In light of this trend, it's worth revisiting perhaps the greatest offensive teams ever, Loyola Marymount. LMU wasn't just fast, they were pioneers. They were the first program to really build their foundation with Division I transfers. Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball from USC, everyone knows them. But there was also Corey Gaines from UCLA, plus Chris Nichovich and Vic Lazzaretti from BYU and Marquette. These weren't just bench warmers, all rotation players, averaging at least 6 points per game. Bo Kimball had been an all Pac-12 freshman at USC, putting up 12.1 points per game. LMU was stacked, fast, and fearless. They averaged 122.4 points per game in the 1989-90 season, with a 35-second shot clock. To put that in context, that average would place them 10th all-time in NBA history, even though they played 8 fewer minutes per game than an NBA squad. Part of why LMU's feat is so incomprehensible is stamina. Players often average 34 minutes per game at warp speed, while others in the 7-man rotation logged real minutes. Today, coaches prioritize efficiency, conserving energy for smarter execution. That's why few programs attempt the system anymore. Even Westhead and Don Maestri, the pioneers, eventually slowed down. Maestri set a Division II scoring record at Troy State, 121 points per game, before moving up to Division I. He began D1 averaging 98 points per game, but after a few seasons, he settled into a mid-70s scoring average and enjoyed more sustainable success. Efficiency simply beat aesthetics again and again. The challenge: why 100 points per game is so rare. To appreciate the magnitude of that number, you've got to understand its rarity. Even as college basketball has experienced its 2 most efficient seasons ever over the past 2 years, only one Division I team this century, the 2006 to 2007 VMI Keydets, has averaged 100 points per game. They finished at exactly 100.9 points per game. And even then, it was in a low major conference with a 14-19 record. VMI had an upperclassman future NBA player and the perfect storm of upperclassmen talent, but still couldn't translate pace into wins. That's the thing. Running 100 points per game is one thing. Winning while doing it consistently is another. LMU's 1989-90 team makes it even clearer. They averaged 122.4 points per game with a 35-second shot clock, and they weren't padding stats on low-level opponents. They finished 15th and 21st in the AP poll in 1988 and 90, went 4-3 in NCAA tournaments, and had 5 NBA players on the roster over those 5 years. They even played in all 5 of the top highest scoring games in NCAA history, including the legendary 149-115 upset over Michigan, in the 1990 second round. Even today, that level of pace and scoring would rank in the top 10 all-time NBA averages despite shorter games and a longer shot clock in college. Pace alone isn't enough. You need skill density, conditioning, and a roster built to sustain it night after night. Enter Ben Howlett, West Liberty's offensive machine. If anyone can break the drought, it's Ben Howlett. At West Liberty University, his teams were a scoring juggernaut. Year after year, they ranked number 1 nationally in scoring, often surpassing 100 points per game. During their peak seasons, they averaged over 105.2 points per game, with multiple seasons above 98 and into the 100s. His teams didn't just run, they passed, moved, and exploited every defensive gap. They finished in the top 3 nationally in offensive efficiency across nearly every metric, while winning roughly 86% of their games. That's a recipe for dominance. Now that system is imported to IU Indy. Much of his West Liberty core followed him alongside other Division II All-Stars. They're built to hit the ground running, pushing pace and volume from the start. And if they can replicate even a fraction of that production against Division I opponents, 100 points per game isn't just a dream, it's on the table. IU Indy versus Ohio State, a statement game. The 118-102 game against Ohio State wasn't a fluke. It was a preview of what this team could become. IU Indy attempted 76 shots, including 38 threes. They pressed defensively, ran lanes, and showed zero interest in slowing down against a high major opponent. And here's the kicker. They scored 102 points without hitting a hot three-point percentage or leaning heavily on free throws. 31.6% from deep and only 20 trips to the line. That's not luck. That's system, discipline, and a willingness to push tempo no matter what. For a program coming off years of offensive futility, the difference was staggering. If they can put up 100 points on the road against a Big Ten team, imagine the fireworks when they face Horizon League defenses or most mid-majors. Mid-major teams will be chasing ghosts, pressing, cutting, nonstop action. It's like a highlight reel every night, and that style sells. For recruits, this is a dream. Players want to run, score, and showcase skill in a system that rewards creativity and effort. Howlett's track record at West Liberty proves it's possible. If he can develop talent while pushing pace, that's a huge recruiting pitch. Fast-paced, high-volume scoring, and a real chance to put your stats on the map. Modern NBA and NCAA context. Let's zoom out a little. The NBA has embraced pace and efficiency like never before. The Indiana Pacers are averaging 123.1 points per game, 7th all-time in NBA history. Denver's 1981-82 squad holds the all-time NBA record at 126.5 points per game. LMU, with 122.4 points per game, would rank top 10 all-time in NBA, scoring even with 8 fewer minutes per game. That shows just how historically significant these teams were, and how extraordinary IU Indy's potential is if they sustain this system. It's not just pace, it's execution. LMU had a true shooting percentage of .603. Even today, that would rank in the top 5 nationally. For comparison, Alabama leads the NCAA at 90 points per game this season, still far below that level. LMU combines skill, pace, and stamina, the trifecta. And that's exactly the template IU Indy is aiming for. Why 100 points per game is so hard. Maintaining 100 points per game is almost mythical. Even the pioneers, Westhead at LMU, Don Maestri at Troy, and Duggar Balcom at VMI, eventually faced diminishing returns. LMU needed 2 All-Americans and multiple NBA caliber players just to sustain that pace. Players were averaging 34 minutes per game in a 7-man rotation, which is insane by any standard. Depth mattered. You couldn't just play a top 2 or 3 and hope for the best. The 9th and 10th players had to log real minutes, stay conditioned, and execute perfectly. Maestri tried it at Troy State in Division II. setting a scoring record at 121 points per game. When he moved up to Division I, he averaged 98 in his first season, then gradually dropped into the low to mid-70s per game for sustained success. Efficiency simply outpaced aesthetic brilliance. Even Duggar Baucham's VMI team in 2006-07, the only Division I team this century to reach 100 points per game, went 14-19. They had a future NBA player and a roster that understood the demands of the system, yet victories were hard to come by. The lesson? Pace is not enough. Stamina, skill density, and depth are non-negotiable. And that's exactly why IU Indy's Ohio State performance is so encouraging. If they can push 100 points against a top-tier team, it suggests they might have the personnel and conditioning to sustain it, at least against mid-major competition. Challenges and considerations? Of course, it won't be easy. Running this system night after night is exhausting. Every player, from the star to the role player, has to buy in. There's no margin for error. Fatigue, turnovers, and sloppy shot selection can derail the plan quickly. Depth is critical. A deeper bench implies more talent, which isn't easy for a non-power program to secure. You're effectively substituting minutes from your top 2 or 3 players with the 8th, 9th, or 10th man. That can hurt efficiency if those players aren't ready. This is why teams rarely attempt this outside of blue blood programs like Kentucky, where talent accumulation makes relentless pace feasible. Still, IU Indy has a secret weapon, Howlett's West Liberty experience. He's built teams that average over 100 points per game across multiple seasons. He understands rotations, conditioning, and spacing at a high level. With the right recruits, including transfers used to his pace, IU Indy could pull off something truly rare in modern Division I basketball. 2025's great experiment. Can IU Indy make history? For nearly 2 decades, the dream of a Division I team averaging 100 points per game has been little more than a nostalgic curiosity. VMI in 2006-07 came close, and LMU in the late 80s and early 90s set a standard that seems untouchable. But IU Indy might just have the blueprint and belief system to resurrect it. Ben Howlett brings not only a proven system, but also a culture that rewards skill, creativity, and stamina. His West Liberty teams weren't just fast. They were disciplined, efficient, and unafraid to push the limits of conventional wisdom. Now, that same philosophy is being tested at the Division I level. The Ohio State game showed it's possible. 118 points on the road against a high major team without any statistical flukes. This was bold, fearless basketball. The Jaguars weren't relying on hot shooting from three-point land or free throw advantages. They played their style, fully committed to pace and volume. That's the kind of statement that resonates with recruits, energizes fans, and sends a clear message to opponents. IU Indy isn't slowing down for anyone. It's a daring experiment, no question. It requires stamina, depth, and a roster capable of executing at warp speed. But if anyone can do it, it's Howlett and his crew. And if they pull it off, it won't just be a statistical oddity. It will be a blueprint for modern mid-major offense. A reminder that in a world obsessed with efficiency, there's still room for boldness, creativity, and sheer offensive audacity. For the first time in 17 years, the 100-point dream doesn't seem impossible. It seems inevitable if IU Indy continues to play like they did against Ohio State. That was fearless. And if the Jaguars keep pushing the pedal to the metal, 2025 could be remembered as the year the modern 100-point team was reborn. All right, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you got some good insights. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who'd find it useful. And don't forget to check out the resourcenexus.com for more in-depth analysis. Until next time, check you later.
Cool. Guess we'll see you around.
All right, check you later.
Bye.
Wait, man, why are you always such a dork, man? What are you talking about? Check you later. Check you